We had a dope episode today. A little bit different than usual.
Bingo. We're on number 18.
Stop fucking saying the number of the episode every
I'm gonna
time.
do it until you go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's gonna be Barkology 198. It's
Yeah, and
just
it's
like
gonna be
like
epic.
UFC or
Okay, well, guess
Bellator.
what? Guess what? I'm gonna stop, and then when we hit episode 100, you're gonna be like, "Congrats, we've hit episode," and I'm not gonna say it. You fucking idiot.
I'm gonna
You bald-headed crispy fuck.
pre-call plan that shit, and I'm gonna have a
Oh my
surprise.
God.
I'm gonna have a little fucking
my
puppy dog
God.
bite you right on the tip of your dick,
Oh
and then
my
that's
God.
the surprise.
You literally dress like you fucking are ready to hold a summer camp for one reason. The wrong reason.
Yeah, I know that reason, Greg. It's to have fun.
Oh my God.
Not with
Go
children.
fuck yourself.
All right, so the episode today, we'll get into it. We had a guest on, which was awesome. His name is Nate. Nathaniel Childs. He was a professional dog trainer. He's been doing it for 5 years. Transitioned from doing human behavior stuff.
Great
We actually,
Nate.
Nathaniel Childs. Yeah, we didn't really ask him though what he did in human behavior and human services. So
Little late.
yeah, maybe next time. But he talked a little bit about his dogs, particular training trends, what works for particular personalities. Greg asked some questions about how to help his dog. We also got into what are some of the best ways and what are his go-tos in training.
Just listen to it and find out more. Boom.
There you go. All right,
Scott
well,
likes to hear
listen to this
himself
episode.
talk.
It's pretty fun.
Idiot.
It is
Idiot.
good. And that's about it, Greg. So tune in, guys. Thanks. That's amazing.
The dogs.
Is that even a real story?
That's a fact.
This is complete nonsense, Greg.
Read a book.
I guess you are kind of artistic.
Incredible.
What are you even talking about, man?
Go for broke.
I don't even know what that means. Let's get it going.
Let's get her going. Keep her going, baby.
We'll kind of just go from there. And the sheet you sent, we'll just kind of develop questions as we go through based on, your past experience and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Cool. All right. Greg, you ready to go?
Yeah.
So just
What do you want from me?
are we recording right now?
Yeah, we are.
Cool.
All right, so should I just start?
No,
No.
we're gonna have Scott.
Yeah, we'll
We're
go.
gonna have Scott.
All right. Greg, what's up, my man?
Not too much, Scott.
So we have a fourth person on this call, and I'll explain that real quick. We have my brother Kevin sitting in the room with us, not on a mic, but he's definitely a part of this whole thing. But
He secretly does have a mic, so if he says anything,
Secret mic.
okay, yeah, he's not
he
gonna be
is
talking,
on
but
the
he's
episode.
here. But we also have a special guest today, Nathan
Yep.
Childs. I could introduce him, but I'm going to let him do it himself. So, Nate, why don't you give them a quick rundown of who you are and what you're all about, man?
All right, well, hey, Scott, hey, Greg, and Kevin, how you doing?
Great. I'm doing fantastic.
You hear me okay over there?
We can.
Absolutely, man.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so like they said, my name's Nathan Childs. I'm a professional dog trainer and a whisperer in training. Basically, I've been training dogs professionally for 5 years now. I live in and I'm from Rochester, New York. And before I started working with dogs, I worked with human behavior and the special needs population for well over 10 years. And I kind of transitioned out of that and started working with dogs, both with my own dogs and, rescues, that kind of stuff. And through the years, I've definitely refined my techniques and researched, all sorts of different training methods and philosophies and, big name trainers down to people you've never heard of. And so currently I work with pet dogs, all breeds and sizes, a lot of rescue dogs, either before they are, home, they're still with the rescue foster, or after they get into the home. And also puppies. Those are my favorite because they're like, clay. You can kind of mold them from the start versus trying to undo years and years sometimes of, experiences.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was going to say that one of the reasons we wanted to get Nate on here is because Greg and I both have dogs. We've talked about them before. They're actually, I still think of them as puppies, but they're not puppies anymore. They're adult dogs.
A year and a half. That's an adult.
Yeah, and mine are 5 and 7, 6 and 8 actually. But
you have like grandparent dogs.
Yeah, but we wanted to get Nate on here because Greg and I have no formal experience doing any training.
No.
Yeah,
none.
I mean, absolutely nothing.
But, hey, before we get into exactly how you do what you do, Nate, tell us a little bit about the dogs that you have.
Right now, well, I have my own dog, Falcon, who's he's an English cream golden retriever. Basically, I acquired him. I took him in when he was a puppy to get him trained in preparation for service dog work.
Nice.
And for whatever reason, that didn't work out, and he ended up being my dog. And so he's about a year and a half now. So I know that age very well. I'm just getting over the teenage hump, which we'll talk about a little more later. But definitely, definitely teenagers are challenging at best, whether it's a dog or a human. So my daughter has her dog. He's a Corgi. His name is Bean, and he's just over a year, so he's definitely still a little ruffian teenager. And then my two older dogs, which don't currently live with me, just due to circumstance, Baby Bear, which is a Pomapoo, my first dog, which he's not a dog's dog. He's not, he's a Pomeranian poodle mix.
Yeah,
so
he's a little softy pup.
Yeah, it's almost more like a cat, which was funny because I was definitely more of a cat person until I started getting my own dogs and working with dogs more. So then I got Vinny, he's kind of a mutt. He's a black and tan heeler for the best description. So he's tough as nails, and the name Vinny definitely suits him very well. He's like the regulator, tough guy. And, that's kind of where I started with things because he was very high strung. He was very wanted to get in everyone's face, wanted to start shit with everyone, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's a great term.
Very anxious, just couldn't deal and cope with a lot of life. So,
hey, that's the most of us, my man. Where'd you come up? Sorry to interrupt. Where'd you come up with the name Falcon for a dog?
Falcon, that actually came with him. I didn't pick it, but it definitely suits him. I believe originally it was named after the vehicle and also the bird. So the previous owner had a love for falcons, so she named him after that. And he just kind of stuck with him.
Didn't we just... Is this deja vu, or Scott, did we have someone on? Oh, no, we told the Falcon story.
No.
Sorry.
There was no dog
I'm
named
distracting.
Falcon.
I'm dumb.
All right, well, that's awesome. Thanks for introducing yourself. It's cool that you have a little bit of background, overlapping with human behavior and then transitioning into the dog behavior stuff. I'm sure there is some sort of overlap with that where you can take certain techniques to, train your kids and then train your dogs. But I'll let you get into that a little bit. But tell us a little bit about your earliest experiences with animals. I know you said that you were initially a cat guy, and now you're a dog guy.
Yeah. Back when I was little, I've always been kind of an introvert, not really into big social scenes and, being at the life of the party. So I would always be that kind of guy that would kind of hang back, or if there was a cat or a dog, I kind of, bond with them and, play with them while everyone else was doing their thing. And I remember the first animal that I really connected with, it was this cat my mom's friend had, and we were over there, and I kind of snuck away and was just kind of interested in the cat, and it was very shy, hiding, and it came out and let me pet it. And before I left, we were best friends, and she was like, "Oh my God, that cat doesn't like anybody. You're literally the first person other than me the cat has, interacted with or opened up or warmed up to." So, and that kind of just, identifying and trying to come down to their level and connect with them at their speed is a big part of what I do now. So, it's especially rescue dogs or dogs with a lot of baggage, or, the way we look at it is a lot of dogs have PTSD, because you don't know what they've been through. They can't tell their story. You just got to kind of work with the dog that's in front of you. And a lot of them exhibit same type of symptoms that people with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Sure.
as far as overreacting to little things, we call them triggers. Not being able to cope with a lot of things in life, or trying to deal with too much at once where they can't process what's going on. Dealing with people that are now angry or upset with them or yelling at them can make it way worse. And, don't get me wrong. I mean, dogs can be frustrating as all hell. When you're in the thick of it, when the dog is, losing their shit and, trying to bite you and everyone else, it gets a little frustrating, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely, man. I know we've had some experience with that. But I think that comes with the territory. There's so many different dog breeds that literally, they're great around you. They're great around your friends. They're great around your family. But then they get out there and they see a dog across the street and they freak out. It's so hard to determine what's actually going on inside their heads. But I like how you kind of led into your dog whisperer or pet whisperer potential future by saying that cat was you were the only one that cat loved. But let's continue forward a little bit.
Sure.
So getting into the dog training, you had a background in human services, human behavior stuff, but who really kind of got you into dog training, or how do you transition into that?
Well, to be honest with you, there's a guy, you might have heard of him, named Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer on TV.
Oh, Caesar. Yeah.
And, back then my dog was very challenging. I watched that show religiously. I think I went through the whole back catalog, binged it out, just trying to pick up anything and everything I could. And, he's a great guy. He does great things with a lot of dogs. But I've also learned a few things since then. And his approach is great if you can, stand up to some of these very aggressive and challenging dogs, which, most trainers would not even touch probably 80% of the dogs he works with. Mm-hmm. So, the first time a dog tried to take a chunk out of me and I holy shit, it's like it changes your whole mindset. And for him to be able to do that and keep going and, but he got a lot of flack for a lot of his methods. I don't know how familiar you are with all of that. But basically, a lot of the things I got from him were that kind of calm, confident energy and, kind of restricting the dog and their naughty behaviors. And, he admits he's not a trainer. He really rehabilitates dogs that are either going to get killed or could potentially kill something else. So.
Yeah. Greg, did you have something to say?
Yeah. So you're clearly a fan of Caesar and his methods.
Not necessarily.
Well,
yeah. I mean, but he definitely has some legitimate.
Sure. So my question is, whatever happened to Caesar? Where is he now?
I think he did the dog whisperer. Then he did a Caesar 911. He's definitely refined his methods over the years. He uses a lot more positive approaches, and which not saying he didn't do that before, but you didn't see a lot of that on TV.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah, it's all glitz and glam. They chop out whatever you. Well,
right.
they leave in what you need to see. Let's just say it that way.
It really hit home when they're like, 3 weeks later, after spending 3 weeks at the training facility. I'm like, yeah, give me 3 weeks at that dog, no problem. It's like
right
on TV, not happening.
Right. No, that's a good point there, because I did watch the show. I was very young when that show did air, and just watching him walk into the house and then immediately the dog is just behaved.
Right.
Like out of thin air. I'm like, it's maybe a little bit unbelievable, but it makes sense if you work with an animal for weeks until they're finally, well trained, and then bring them back into their home environment. It's going to make sense that when you walk into the door, the dog's going to be a different dog.
When he walks in, he's very confident. He doesn't put up with any bullshit. And that's all that dog knows about him. Like the owner, they know they can push them over. They can get away with this. They can do this. This is how they get everything they want. But when he walks in, he's like, nope, not putting up with that. And, I get kind of a similar response. I walk in and I, befriend the dog. I start giving them the things they want, but on my terms. So, it's very common for them to either turn away from me and say, well, this guy is making me do stuff, whereas you're easier and I can get stuff from you or get stuff on my own. And then I'm trying to make the dog work for it. And, once they realize I have things they want and they can get them by doing things I want them to do, and I don't ask a lot up front. It's just like, hey, thanks for being here. I form a bond with them. I, get a relationship going with them. We have some good times. And then I start asking for more and more and more. It's basically the analogy I use is, like if one of your friends wins the lottery and they just walking around with a big bag of money, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, buddy, how you doing? What are you up to? You want to go out? You want to go do some stuff? You want to go party? And they're paying for everything, and they're buying you drinks, and it's great. And then all of a sudden, a couple of days later, they're like, hey, do you mind picking up my laundry for me? Hey, do you mind making me a sandwich? You mind, this, that? And they're like, sure. We're still going to go out. We're still going to have fun. We're still going to party. And you're like, sure. And before you know it, you're literally like doing all this stuff for them, and they're taking you out like once in a while, and they're still your buddy, and you're still having fun. But and that's kind of the way I look at it is we have things the dog want and need, and all we're asking for is them to give us some sort of consideration, ask us about things, not just try to do whatever they want whenever they feel like it. And that's dog training in a nutshell.
Yeah, just don't be an asshole, dog. Sometimes they can just be assholes.
A good word. I use that term on occasion, but yes, when your dog is being an asshole, like who's responsible for that? You, the dog. I mean, the dog is not going to go all of a sudden, oh yeah, you're right, I'm kind of being an asshole. I'm sorry about that. I won't do that anymore. They're having a great time. They're having a blast. They think everything they're doing is great. I say it's like that drunk guy that walks into the bar when you're there with your buddies having a good time. You're kind of doing your own thing, and then this guy blows in the front door. He's obviously had a few already. He's coming over. He's spilling drinks on people. He's trying to, be your best friend. You're just telling him to go away, and he won't go away.
Huh. So I've got a good question for you. So my dog Oliver, he's a 1.5-year golden retriever, 80 pounds, so he's a big boy. Very stubborn. One of the things that he really enjoys to do on a walk is he will actually just lay down. And not just lay down, right? He will throw the most dramatic, flop you've ever seen. I am the worst owner in the world. I just pulled him so hard that he flipped over, and then he just lays on the ground. And I can drag him across the lawn on the leash, and he just won't budge. Any tips on that?
I think he's telling you he doesn't want to go for a walk right now.
Well, no, it's on the way home. It's right before we head home.
Oh, really? That's funny. All right, so I don't know, how far away from home are you at this point?
Like a driveway or two.
Yeah, it's almost like he doesn't want to go back, or
well, that's what he's doing. He doesn't want to go back.
Yeah, or he's just So I think you just need to assert yourself as the dominant force in the relationship.
There's enough. I can't just.
No, that's my opinion, and that's kind of why we have you on. Why we have you on the call, Nate. So you
and
can
then he tries
give
to
us
bite
your.
me. It's not good. It's not a good scene.
Yeah.
The neighbors look at me. It's really bad. No, it's fine.
All right. Well, and there's different ways to motivate a dog, and that's where different training techniques come in. Obviously you're pretty spot on. He's like, I don't want to go home. I don't want to go, because basically when you go back home, it's no fun. But when he's on the walk and you're walking, he's enjoying himself. He's being a dog. He's sniffing things.
Yeah, he's usually pretty well behaved on walks. Better so with me than my girlfriend, which makes a lot of sense though. But yeah, no, on the walk, he's generally pretty good. We get like two, three driveways away, and he just, like I said, he throws like the biggest flop you've ever seen. Just dives on the ground, lays on his back, and just won't go anywhere.
All right, now, yeah, I mean, every dog's a little different, and why he's doing it, like some dogs, usually it's when you're trying to leave. If you get too far away from the house, they'll be like, I don't want to go any further away. And then when you come back, they're dragging you the whole way. I mean, same thing with dogs. You let them outside, and then they don't want to come back in. It's like, well, if we go back this way, the walk ends. It's all fun. But if you try to walk away from the house, they'll be on board.
50-50. Sometimes that trick works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. And you said you had a golden?
Yep.
How old?
1.5 years.
1.5 years. Okay. And he's been doing this how long?
Oh, good question. A while.
Yeah, I feel like just from my experience with Greg bringing this up in conversation, it's somewhat recently, maybe the past couple months. Like
no.
It's
probably
more than
like
that.
Maybe like a year.
Oh, so 66% of his life
He's
Yeah.
he's a smart dog.
He's
Just say
learned
that.
how to get his way. He's learned how to change what you do. I mean, I guess my question is why does he need to go for a walk? I mean,
I take him like
rare,
3 times a day for little
You walk
walks, 3 or
times a day?
4. Yeah,
all right, and he does this every single time.
almost every single time. Yeah.
All right, so my first advice is you got to change something you're doing if you expect your dog to change something they're doing. So okay, so you walk him. Why do you walk him? For exercise? Because you have to go. I mean, it's just to exercise him, right?
Um. Yeah. Well, both. So we put him in the crate when we go away for work.
Right.
So I give him a walk in the morning. Like they're short walks. They're not long ones. So I take him for like a short walk, in the morning. He poops, whatever. I bring him home. It's because we're putting him in the crate right after we bring him in the house, isn't it?
Well, you're starting to form into dogs always know what predicts what's coming next if it happens like 3 times in a row. So he's like, "Oh, we're on one side. You're going to put me in the crate for all day." So honestly, I rarely walk my dog, and when people tell me they walk the dog 3 times a day, I'm like, "Why? Why?" And sometimes they're like, "Oh, it's for an hour to 2 hours each time." I'm like, "So you're spending 4 to 6 hours a day walking your dog?" I'm like, "I would never sign up for that."
That's absurd. Yeah, I mean that's the extreme.
I'm
for sure.
close to that. No, they're short walks. They're like little 15-minute guys. If he decides to sit down,
All right.
25.
And that kind of thing is change it up. Like, we're not going to go for a walk. We're going to go play in the yard for a bit. We're going to walk back and forth in front of the house and up and down the driveway. But we're going to make it fun. There's going to be a toy involved. Or even food. I mean, food-based training, I don't like to use that long term because then you get kind of dependent on always having food on you. But if you can find something that really gets your dog going and gets their attention, usually it's their favorite toy, which you would, not break out until you actually needed it. Bring it with you on the walk, and basically you're trying to meet them halfway. I have something that kind of meets what you're looking for, because a walk, I mean, if he's not that interested in a walk, it's not that rewarding. So why do you need to go through it? I play with my dog in the yard 80 to 90% of the time. We go out, we go to the dog park, we go for a hike. But if he's pitching a fit to go for a walk, I mean, that's just kind of reading your dog and working with them. The other option is, slap a prong collar on him and drag him home, which is, probably not your best.
Right.
But some trainers would advise that. And I'm like, well, if the dog doesn't want to go with you, you make him go with you. I'm like, well, the walk is for him, I mean, obviously, or try jogging. Like if you're jogging and more active and, something that's a little more enticing, or don't turn around and come home, go like a different route. I mean, do you usually turn around about the same spot and come back?
Yeah, typically.
Yeah, you should go, Greg. You should go through the backyards, jump over all the fences in your neighbors' backyards, drag him over the fences. No, I'm just kidding. But one thing that I always thought helped my dog in particular is just going doing a half an hour of like some sort of mental training, whether it's just having them sit or stay or shake and all that crap just over and over again. And that drains my dog out more sometimes than doing the exercise stuff.
Okay. So we're talking about Scott's dog versus my dog. Scott's dog was basically raised in a frat house. My fault as well, and has 0 brain left. But yeah. Scott's having side conversations that are inappropriate.
We're not comparing dogs, Greg. I'm just saying that's what I do.
Right. And every dog's different.
Exactly.
And even throughout the day, like sometimes my dog, all he cares about is food. And that's great. I'll have him work for food. I mean, and then sometimes he wants to be active. Okay. And you're right. Incorporating mental exercise in with the physical, because mental exercise will drain your dog just as fast or faster. And if you're exercising them all the time, they will get more in stamina. They will need to be exercised more. That 10-minute walk is now a 30-minute walk. And, that's very typical with dogs that go to daycare, because it's like, well, just send them to daycare, they'll wear them out. It's like, well, now your dog comes home from daycare and is ready for more because they're super athletes. And, so it's a double-edged sword. And plus they'll learn to be super excited, how to, play rougher with certain dogs, and, that can spill over. Or some dogs are completely drained, because daycares can be mentally draining, because it is stressful to a lot of dogs just because it is so busy and there's so much going on. And and they have to deal with all sorts of personalities. You know, not all dogs at daycare are super friendly and super sociable. Some of them can be, you know, a bit much.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, Greg, this is what I'm getting. Mix it up a little bit. Use a little mental stimulation. Don't let him predict what's going on throughout the day.
All I'm hearing is I got to mind fuck him.
Yeah. Well, definitely don't fuck him.
No, mind fuck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, and it's leverage. I mean, it's like if he's coming home to something he wants versus you're trying to make him come home to nothing. So, you know, okay, so when you get home from the walk, then I'll feed you. You know, it's he has to look for, oh, we do this, and then I get my food. A lot of people are like, well, I feed the dog, then I take him for a walk because I got to push the poop along. You know, I got to feed him first. So it's like, no, dogs learn. You know, you do your business, we come home, then we eat.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. I mean, before we move on here, I just want to say, like, for my two dogs, sometimes, and I hate it, but I'll be gone for, 8 or 9 hours during the day. But if I feed them before I let them out in the morning, it's much better for them because they'll go out, pee, poop, and then they know that, there's going to be a duration of time that they won't even drink water and things like that. But if I let them out first, they know that the food's coming next and they won't fully pee or poop. And then that's when, like, there's issues potentially throughout the day. Just something to add in there. But let's move on just because for the sake of time. But
Sure.
We did have a third, fourth party question from Kevin sitting here. All right, so do you want to ask it?
Yeah.
Kevin, your mic's not on.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll let Kevin turn his mic back on. He had one question because he has a friend that he lives with, or one of his good buddies that has an issue with the dog. So he just wanted a quick, like, one-hitter feedback on how to help that out. So go ahead, Kev.
Yeah, Nate, I appreciate you taking my question. Actually, I'm sure it's good for all the viewers to actually, know this type of situation. So the situation I have is my roommate's dog bags all the time, sits there and bags in the kitchen, and then while we're eating and stuff like that. So I'm sure it's a very common theme that's within every household. Is there anything like a quick hit, one hit way to kind of resolve this, or is it like a long-term thing? Or maybe give your opinion on bagging itself, or what you think you should do.
Yeah, it's very, very, very common. I mean, are they begging for your attention, food, both?
Both.
Probably both. Yeah, I would say probably the food mainly because he's a little fat ham, but both.
Right. And, the biggest thing is, dogs that have free access to you all the time, and they get used to anytime I want anything from you, I come up to you and I get it. And if it's your attention, just coming up to you and pestering you gets your attention. Because even if you're addressing it and, trying to get them to go away, you're still talking to them, interacting with them, looking at them. So basically that's where, a lot of trainers will do like a place or have them go to their bed or learn to relax. But that's the tricky part because you get them to go over there, then they get up. And then you get them to go over there, then they get up. So it's like you spend all day getting up and bringing them back to their place. So what I do is a combination of restricting their access to you. So that could be either a gate or a tether. You can go up to them, you can interact with them, you can give them stuff. Then wean them off because a lot of dogs are almost addicted to you. Like they don't know what to do. They're like, well, I'll just go up to my owner and they can make me feel better. That's kind of, bottom basic separation anxiety. It's like I feel better when I'm with you. So, typical example, me, I'll have the dog's dinner. Like I'm a firm believer of having the dog work for their meals. And in the beginning, you're going to piece it out, every little thing they do, you give them a piece of food, then you can start kind of building up how much they do, and then you give them a larger chunk of the food. But, like literally during dinner, I'll go over and bring some food, usually it's kibble. Sometimes I'll mix in some better stuff just to, make it worth their while in the beginning.
All right.
And lead them over to their bed or their place, 5-10 feet away from you. And keep reinforcing them there and then space it out. First it's every couple seconds and it's 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And if you keep coming back and rewarding them there, then they don't have to keep coming to you. And that's training. I mean, I know it sounds like a pain in the ass, but you do that for a few days in a row and you'll look over and your dog will be sitting on his bed waiting for you to give him something as opposed to pestering you. And then it's on your terms of when you give it to him. But the other concept I use a lot is tethering, which, it's not like, oh, I'm going to tie my dog down and he can't do anything. It's like you just restrict him so he can come near you. He can check things out. He's got some freedom, but he can't just keep coming up and pestering you. Like when I used to work from home, like my dog would always come up and like sit there and stare at me. And, pester me. So I tethered him. He could come like almost to me. He could lay down next to me. I could touch him. I could give him a piece of food. I could pet him, but he can't get to me.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Sense. And I do a lot of tethering, especially younger puppies, because once you give them free rein and free access, that's when they get in a lot of trouble. So I literally would give him his crate, a nice bed, a chew toys, a toy to and then, okay, buddy. And as soon as he settles and stops trying to get my attention, that would be when I would give him some attention.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's kind of like a reverse psychology, being smarter than the dog. I keep telling Greg to be smarter than the dog, but I think he's having trouble with that aspect.
Well, what's rewarding to the dog, it changes minute to minute, and they will tell you loud and clear what they want. I want your attention. Okay, that's great. Go over to your mat, chill out for a minute. Okay, I'll be right over there. Here, have a couple pieces of food while you're waiting. And that's the bridge. You have to meet them halfway. You have to change what you're doing to change what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And thank you, Kevin, for that call-in question. Great response, Nate. I appreciate that. For the sake of time, again, let's kind of move into the different schools of thought on training, because I know there's probably 20 different ways that people think is the best way to train your dog. Training tools, any sort of controversies that you've run into since you become a dog trainer for the past 5 years. Basically what I've always thought is there's a few different schools of thought. Maybe you have to be the alpha dog. Positivity training is always something that seems to be brought up a lot. But then recently, and I know nothing about this, it's like the clicker training, which I think is just like reinforcement. Yeah, just like that, Greg. Thanks. But you don't need to touch on those, but maybe go through the top 2 or 3 of your training schools of thought, and then expand on those, and then we'll kind of just walk through that.
Sure. I mean, like you said, there's definitely a couple. There's the clicker trainers, which are usually associated with your pure positive and reward based, which is, the dog can do no wrong. But when they do the right thing, you click and give them a treat, because the clicker has the power to tell the dog the instant they do something right. So it's called marker training. You mark the behavior the instant it happens, and then they associate that with getting a reward. And that goes back to, I don't know if you ever heard of Pavlov with his dogs.
Yep.
Of course, yeah.
Basic
Psychology 101.
You got it. And honestly, when I went back for dog training certification, it was literally just a rehash of psychology, a couple classes I took back in college, plus, how to apply that to dogs and all the tools and that kind of stuff. But it was very, for those that don't know, there's Pavlov, who did the dogs. He rang a bell, then he fed them. And after so many times of doing that, he would ring the bell and the dogs would start salivating. So the dogs had learned that the bell predicts they're going to get something, food. So applying that to different situations, you can teach a dog that any noise or any sort of thing you say predicts they're going to get something. So clickers are a great example. Other trainers will use the word yes or good. And those are just marker words. It could be a noise. You could snap your fingers. You could, anything you pick. As long as you pair that with a reinforcer, that has the power. It's almost like I use the example of a slot machine. You put your money in, you pull the arm, you see the numbers lining up. Oh my God, I'm going to win.
Ling, 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 ling.
Yeah, you haven't gotten anything yet. You haven't gotten the money, but you won and you're going to get something. And that anticipation of actually getting something is what's powerful about it, because it primes the brain to be like, oh my God, this is awesome.
And congratulations, your brain is turning into mashed potatoes. There you go. No, I'm just kidding. But
the next thing they do is they win and they just start putting more money back in the machine, because they want to win and again and again. And that's, the long and the short of basic training, that's just, I pair, when you do something I like, I say the word yes, I say good boy, I give you a little scratch, I give you a piece of food, I throw the ball for you. But it's got to be in that order. You do something I like that I'm asking for or looking for, then I reward you. Dogs try to take all that stuff without doing anything or doing the worst possible behavior. They want your attention, they jump on you, they bark, they rip that treat out of your hand or that piece of food. They grab that ball and steal it from you and try to play keep away. Dogs always try to get things on their terms. And, as owners, it's like, same thing with kids. If your kids did a third of the stuff most dogs get away with on a daily basis, they'd be like reform school or like these, troubled teens that, are just can't control themselves, can't think right or wrong in the heat of the moment. They're just going on pure impulse. And they've actually found that when dogs and people act on impulse, it's almost like taking a drug, because you get that little thrill out of it. You get that it's fun, it's exciting. You get reinforced for doing it, unless there's a compelling reason not to, or something that can teach you impulse control and how to earn things by being calm and asking permission and controlling yourself. So that's a lot of what I deal with, is just these very impulsive, excitable, like, for lack of a better term, they're almost like little like drug addicts, crackheads.
No, man. I mean, that's literally, you can apply that to humans' real life on a daily basis. I mean, everybody is sitting there in front of their phone looking for that quick dopamine fix. I mean, it's absurd.
That's what I, put your phone in another room on a charger. You'd have to get up, or it's inconvenient to look at it, and pay attention to how many times you think about checking your email or checking Facebook or checking Instagram, or if this person got back to you. It's like every couple minutes.
I know, dude, it's totally messed up. I totally agree. Even when you're going to bed, like, just having that blue light in the room is the worst thing that you can have to try to fall asleep. Even having your phone on silent as opposed to with the volume on can psychologically just ruin the first hour that you're trying to go to sleep. But yeah, no, I totally agree with what you're saying. I like how you're kind of bringing it back to real life situations and how you and I think, and Greg sometimes thinks, usually not though, on a daily basis. But so if you were going to say what's your number one school of thought or your number one go-to training protocol, what would that be?
Be all you can be.
I mean,
sorry, he was asking.
Run through because the thing, it's there's combinations of them. So the pure positive reward based, that's your clicker trainers, or the people that focus on everything the dog does right. Some of them don't even believe using the word no is okay, or giving the dogs negative feedback, because it can destroy their fragile self-esteem and ego.
Oh my God. Okay, you know what? Let's just fucking wrap pillows around everything in this world and our dogs.
All right. And that's great if your dog is in a bubble and not having to deal with stress or the real world.
Yeah,
or
sounds like my girlfriend. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Months and you're a trainer and have all this time to really work through each thing step by step with the kid gloves on. But a lot of the people and trainers I work with don't have that kind of time and energy and money a lot of the times, because training is not cheap. So then there's the correction fear-based. That's, your old school, punishment-based. Every time the dog does something wrong, you give them a firm correction, and the dog quickly learns not to do all that stuff.
Right.
A prong collar, a lot of people used to hit the dog with a newspaper, or, any sort of thing they could find laying around. E-collars are kind of the new rage with all that.
What's an e-collar? Sorry to interrupt real quick, but...
Electronic collar, they used to be called shock collars, but the newer ones are a little more refined, where they're not straight shocking the dog. It's not supposed to be overtly painful. It's supposed to be a novel sensation that gets the dog attention, which you can turn up really high so that's uncomfortable.
Gotcha. Okay, now that's what I thought, but I just wasn't sure, so thank you.
A lot of trainers use them because they're quick and easy, and you can knock out all sorts of behaviors very quickly because you're making it very uncomfortable for the dog to do that. Or even to the point where they don't listen, you can make it uncomfortable until they listen. And, that it works. Some dogs respond very well to it. Other dogs respond very poorly to it. And the way a lot of trainers and people look at it, it's like a scalpel in the hand of a surgeon. It's a precision instrument. You can do wonderful things with it, but you wouldn't hand it to a 5-year-old who's hopped up on caffeine.
Or would you? Yeah, no, I know what you're saying though. That's a good point.
Depends on the effect you're trying to get. That's all I'm saying.
You can fry dogs. You can destroy dogs.
Whoa.
Sometimes there's no coming back, and I would not hand it to anybody that I don't I don't use them almost at all. I can't say I've never used them, but it's mostly people that already had them and were kind of locked into it despite my best efforts. Same thing with prong collars. I use them briefly. And I'm like, this almost makes it too easy because they basically don't give the dog a choice. It's like, you can't pull, you can't do this. If you do, it's going to suck. And if you do it again, it's going to suck even more. And, they look great because you put a prong collar on the dog and it's like like that, they won't pull, they won't do this. But it's like, do you want to have to use that the rest of the dog's life? I'm like, it's a training tool. It's not a lifelong solution.
Right. We actually dropped my dog off at my parents for a week when we went to the Bahamas on a vacation, and they're 60 years old. So
Right.
they immediately put the prong collar on, and we never use it, my girlfriend and I, but my parents did, because they just don't. I mean, they can't let an 80-pound dog drag them around, and they said he was great, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not able to train your dog and that's your only option, look, I'm not gonna like come down on people for using them, but you know, it's kind of, I'm trying to think of an analogy. It's a shortcut. It's a tool, you know. And it becomes a crutch, I guess, is the way I look at it. You know, it's not because the dog doesn't want to pull; it's because they can't pull.
Right.
And you know, that's, you know, correction based, and that's kind of a fallout. Is, you know, you're always correcting the dog, and the dog, what, you know, your relationship with the dog is based purely on, I'm going to watch every move you make, and if you mess up, I'm gonna let you know. And, you know, I couldn't live like that. Imagine going to work and your boss is there. He's not helping you do your job, but every time you do something wrong, he's sure as shit going to let you know. And now he's whacking you upside the head, or he's got some sort of thing on you that he can punish you with, you know. And at a certain level, they're popular because the person feels like they're doing something. The dog is being bad, I'm doing something about it. Versus all these other people who just, you know, ignore it or let the dog get away with it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's better. It's a lesser of two evils, but, you know, actually teaching your dog to not want to pull and to want to stay with you and to deal with life and distractions, you know, it's a whole different ball game. But most people, it's, you know, it takes some work.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, that's a good analogy, though. I mean, the reason a lot of people leave their jobs is not because they, or actually, let me rephrase it. The reason a lot of people stay at their jobs is because they like their manager. You know, it's not necessarily the position or the daily duties, but it's because they like being around the people they work with. So to that degree, I mean, I've got to imagine if you're sometimes if you're not doing it appropriately in the correct way, if you're trying to train dogs that way, it's actually going to do the opposite effect. You know what I mean?
Yep. And, you know, like I said, they use those methods pretty much exclusively, you know, back in the day. And they found, you know, especially like military and police dogs, that kind of stuff. And, you know, but what happened was they had a lot of dogs biting the trainers. It was very common for the dog to, F you, buddy, I'm going to bite your ass. And so one change they made, I can't remember who first started it, but before they had the dogs enter the training program, they had the trainers and the dogs bond and just hang out and get to know each other and form a relationship for about 2 weeks. And they found the incidence of biting went way, way, way down. Same training, same, you know, they called it crank and yank back then. I'm going to pull on this collar.
Oh, that's an appealing name for training, huh?
Yeah, yeah. You know, a prong collar, you want them in heel position, you just pull on it and crank them around till they're in heel. You want them to sit, you pull up on it till they sit. You want them to lay down, you pull down on it till they lay down. And, you know, it got results, but, you know, a lot of these dogs, you know, I won't get too into it, but, you know, it's using violence and fear and pain to get the dog to do what you want. And, you know, the fact that just having a relationship with the dog allows them to endure that and still like you, that speaks volumes to me. So I always start with that. You have to kind of build a relationship with your dog, which leads to the next kind of training, which is it's relationship based or emotion based training, which is where, you know, you're a team, you are looking out for the dog's well-being, you will help them and support them as much as they need while they learn to cope with life. And that can be anything. I mean, it could be another dog that's barking at you. It could be kids running around. It could be a squirrel. It could be, you know, an asshole that's really loud and doesn't get that you don't want to say hi to him, you or your dog, you know, and that's a big part of it is, you know, you can only control what you do and what your dog does. You can't control the general public. You know, they're always going to do the wrong thing or the worst thing. And that's what I tell people is like, you can't expect other people to train your dog or to help you out.
I totally get it. I totally get it, man. And I know that you had to get going in a minute, but I want to tell a quick story that kind of relates to that type of training. I think the relationship-based training, and then I do want to hear about one of your big successes, because you do sound like you know what the hell you're talking about, which is awesome. That's why we have you on here. But I just want to hear about one of your standout dogs. But before we get to that, I just wanted to say that I have 2 dogs, as I mentioned. Our younger dog, Utley, actually was raised when my fiance tore her labrum and had hip surgery. So she did that, but the dog basically grew up around her and her friends when she was 20 years old. She was constantly sitting on the ground because you couldn't be, you couldn't be standing or sitting in a chair for any particular amount of time. So the dog grew up literally just always being touched, always around people who are willing to just sit there and build a relationship, in quotations, with that dog. Very loving, didn't really have to ask for much, didn't necessarily get angry or anything over certain situations. He was almost spoiled, but at the same time getting a ton of attention. So nowadays, when he runs into certain situations, he's just kind of like freezes. There's no instinct at all. There's no I'm gonna either fight or flight. It's just him kind of like freezing. But at the same time, when he's 5 years old now, he's like the easiest dog to take care of and manage, compared to any other dog there is. It's unbelievable. But I can imagine and see that if you do that with other types of breeds or temperaments or personalities in other dogs, it could come out a completely different way. So I guess I'm just trying to say we lucked out, which is awesome. Yeah. But moving forward, I just wanted to see and, let you kind of toot your own horn. Tell us about one of your biggest standout dogs being a trainer for the past 5 years. Talk it up, talk yourself up.
What's the craziest story you've ever?
Yeah. Or the biggest
had.
turnaround. Like if this dog was like eating babies and then you turned it into like a therapy dog, something like that.
Whoa.
Well, let me just speak on what you were saying before about the dog that you were just talking about. I forget their name.
Oh, sorry, Scott got up and left. You had to take a pee. Just
yeah, as far as the bonding and socialization is kind of a big word that gets thrown around, and it can mean different things to different people, but it's interacting with the world and getting used to just life, and it's a thing we call normalization, which means this is just something that you're going to come across and deal with. And there's this period up until they're about 14 weeks, which flies by. If you get a puppy at 8 weeks and you spend a little time and then you sign them up for a class and all that, it's like by the time they're 14 weeks, it's like it goes by like nothing. And it's like, well, you're supposed to expose them to all these things. So basically he said the dog would freeze, and that's actually when we talk about fight or flight, that's another option. It's fight, flight, freeze, or frenzy. So freezing is another, basically the dog doesn't know what to do. So the way we look at it is you're almost programming these little circuits or how the dog should respond in each of these situations by exposing them to it and helping them work through it, as opposed to avoiding it or just going through it and hoping they figure it out at some point, which rarely happens.
Right. So I would picture it a lot like fainting as a human.
Yeah. You get when dogs don't know what to do, or even people, you kind of resort to your wild instinctive behavior. That's why when dogs get freaked out, they'll bark and lunge. That's why they could cower, they could freeze, which that happens a lot when dogs are greeting each other. Like they get to a certain point and they get stuck, and they both freeze. And they're like, okay, and if one does something, the other one will, be quick to do something back. And that's usually when they get it gets awkward, and so that's when we want to help them out. But it's just experiences and helping them through it, and that goes back to the relationship-based training. And I just want to touch upon one little thing with that is the emotional component of that, and a lot of it is relaxation. Like the dog gets excited, the dog gets anxious, the dog gets frustrated. So helping them to relax and calm down in stressful situations is a big part of what we do. And so there's a whole new kind of school of training based around that. And, if I have time, I can talk a little more about that, or, but some of the people I've been kind of following more recently focus more on that. Like obedience is great. You can teach a dog to sit, lay down, stay, all that stuff. And, that will work to a certain extent. But if you can get the dog to change their kind of motivation and why they want to do things, and get them kind of on board with what you want them to be doing. That's way more powerful, and you get a more resilient and responsive dog that can deal with all sorts of situations without you having to help them as much. So that leads into, you were asking for one of my bigger success stories. I'll talk about.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, Nate, how you doing on time over there? You got to be anywhere, or we got a little bit?
5 minutes, and then I got to skedaddle.
Okay,
Yeah, bang it out.
well, yeah,
dude.
bang
Let's
out like
do
the
it.
best story, and then we'll get you out of here.
All right, so there was a dog. His name was Brownie. He was a rescue dog. His nickname was Cujo. Little thing. It was a Chihuahua Feist mix, which, if you're familiar with Chihuahuas, you know kind of what we're dealing with. Just a little bit bigger, taller. But his nickname was Cujo, and his first foster basically had to wear oven mitts for the first week she had him, because he just wanted to bite her.
Oh, jeez.
So, and this was, kind of when I was getting more into challenging dogs with significant issues versus just, regular dogs that just needed some basic training. And Brownie, he came to me because the foster had her hands full with 5 other dogs, and he was, kind of depleting her tolerance for things. So I stepped in and took him, and basically he was one of the first ones I had to start from way, way behind the 8 ball. And the first step was earning his trust. And there's a concept we use in rescue that's called the shutdown period, which is allowing the dog to just take in the environment, life, everything else, without asking too much. Because a lot of people will get a rescue dog and, we got to take him to the park. We got to meet all my friends. We got to meet all the dogs in my family. And then a week later, the dog falls apart and is a mess because they haven't had time to process just the whole change. They have a new home, the routine. So basically Brownie was very tentative. Like, he had his little space. It was gated off. I wouldn't come into it. I put out pads, so if he had to pee, I would change them. I had a system of how to, manage him without actually having to force myself on him or force him to do anything he wasn't ready to do.
Yeah, it sounds a lot to me like someone who's been in prison almost all of their life and then gets out and can't really cope with everyday life that we know on the outside, as the movies call it.
Assimilating back into culture.
Yep. And so he, he was with me, and he came out of his shell. It took him about 3 days, and it was basically, I would come up to him, I would set a treat on the edge of his little gate. He would come up and take it, then run away. Then I would open the door. He could come out, come up to me, take a piece of food, then run back in the crate. And after about, 2-3 days of this, one time he just came, took the piece of food, then he jumped in my lap and licked me and let me pet him, and we were best friends ever since.
Woo! Yeah, baby. That's a win right there.
But that was the first little battle, because then as soon as we stepped outside, he wanted to eat everybody and everything that walked by. To the point where he would even go up to people like, "Hey, I'm a friendly dog. You want to pet me?" And then if they tried to pet him, he would try to take their hand off. So,
Jeez, yeah, that's a tough one.
So basically, that was one of my first big projects, and we worked through it, and that was when I kind of learned a couple things I still do to this day, which is, if they see something and they're about to blow up and lose their shit over it, telling them they're a good boy and helping them, as opposed to waiting for them to go crazy and then try to correct that or reprimand them.
Yeah.
It would be like, okay, he'd see a person, he'd be like, "Hey, there's a guy over there. Good boy, nice job. Let's go over here." And, basically just doing that over and over. So when he would see someone, he would then start looking at me, and I'd be like, "Yep, that's a guy." And he'd be like, "Oh, okay." And we would just go on with life. And we could walk by a dog and be like, "Oh, there's a dog over there. Let's move out of the way. Let's let them pass us by. Good boy, nice job." And, basically bridging those, for whatever reason, he feels the need to defend himself. I don't know what happened to him. And this was also one of the first dogs I learned that, having a fun game you can play with them. I taught him how to play fetch. We had these 2 little, they're almost like Beanie Babies, but they were little dog toys, but little soft, not plush. I don't know what the hell was in them, but they didn't have that stuffing in them. And literally we would just play toss it. He would bring it back. I would throw the other one. He would drop that. And so then anytime he would meet someone new, I would just hand them his toys. They would play fetch with them, and they would be friends within like 2 minutes.
Awesome.
That's dude.
He did get adopted, and I actually got to see him about a year after he got adopted. He was, not as good as when I had him because he, obviously when I'm with him, I'm very proactive. But he was doing very well. He hadn't really had any major incidents. Just he's a Chihuahua. They get excited, they bark a little bit, and how to go from he's barking a little bit to he's losing it. That's kind of where the training comes in. It's like dogs should be able to bark. Dogs should be able to tell you they're uncomfortable, but you should be able to help them as opposed to letting them, have to go through all that and deal with it.
No, I totally agree, man. And yo quiero Taco Bell, right? Those Chihuahuas. All right, man. No, I know that you have to get going, and we literally could go for another hour or two based on the amount of experience that you have.
We'll have to do this again at some time.
But before you go, why don't you tell everybody where to follow you, find you on social media, and then what your website is, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, yeah. Well, my company name is Good Dog Training, and the website is gooddogtrainingny.com. If you guys can put a link up to that.
For sure.
I'm also on Instagram as Nate Dog Trainer. And then what's the other one? Facebook. I have a Facebook page for Good Dog Training. If you look for that. And yeah, I mean, I'm basically just starting to do like more advertising. I've been doing mostly word of mouth and through referrals, friends of friends, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's I love to work with as many dogs as possible and help as many people. And for whatever reason, the whole point of training is to be able to go out and enjoy doing things with your dog and experience life together. And if you can't do that, then I feel there's some potential for you and your dog to be able to do more and enjoy things together.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And thank you for coming on again. Everybody follow him, gooddogtraining.com. He's the guy that you want to be with in Western New York, specifically if you want to do some one-on-one training, but I know you're trying to branch out. So Greg and I usually wrap up the episode by saying wag more, bark less. So how about you lead us off and say the first part, and we'll say the second.
Wag more.
Bark less. All right, thanks a lot, man.
All right.
This episode of the podcast is supported by GoodDogTrainingNewYork.com. Our buddy Nathaniel Childs. We had a great conversation with him this episode.
Baby.
Nate the Great. But he is a dog trainer in Rochester, New York. So if you live in upstate, you should definitely reach out to him. He specializes in the one-on-one stuff. So if you're trying to let your dog go over to a stranger's house and learn shit, go to him. No, I'm just kidding. That sounded kind of weird.
The guy.
But he does a lot of different training. He has training packages. He definitely knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for over 5 years now. Transitioned from a human services background. So I think he has that psychology stuff down, whether it's humans or dogs. Considers himself a little bit of a whisperer, huh, Greg? Whispers, baby.
Yeah, and actually after during this podcast and interview, I'd agree.
I'd agree.
Might whisper.
He also does some boarding. So if
but
you
not a whispering eye.
not the whispering eye. But if you are going out of town or you need some daily help, he does some boarding and training. He does intensive training and rehab as well. So if you have minor injuries, little tweaks here and there, you can't go over, but your dog can. So check him out at gooddogtrainingny.com. Booyah.
Baby.
And that's it for the Barkology Podcast. You can follow us at Barkology Podcast on all of the social media platforms, except for Twitter is Barkology Pod. Fuck Twitter. We don't have anything interesting to really say on Twitter. Anyways, it's all the vids. But all of the podcast platforms.
Wherever you nerds find things.
iHeartRadio is coming soon. They reached out to us and they're like, hey, we need you guys on here. So we're going to go on iHeartRadio.
I'd rather you be live.
Barkology Podcast. Barkology Podcast. You can get the WAG swag at barkology.itemorder.com. Grab some gear. We had a little malfunction the past week. We didn't realize the website was down. Yeah, but now it's back up. Ours. So now it's back up. Barkology.itemorder.com. Get the WAG swag. But everywhere else, Barkology Podcast, including YouTube. We're kind of mixing in the video nowadays. We're trying to. We have our intern Megan's thinking about doing some video shoots. issues.
Ooh,
But
baby.
again, Barkology Podcast, everywhere you can find us.
Wiggity.
Love you guys.
Wiggity,
Wag more,
wiggity,
bark less.
wiggity, wag more, bark less, baby.
Also, don't forget to submit your pictures for Dog of the Week.
Diggity, diggity, diggity.
Go on
dog.
Instagram, wherever you want to
Yeah.
follow us. You can
Okay.
comment pictures as well if that's possible. But go to Instagram, Dog of the Week. Every single week we are posting and tagging you in our Dog of the Week. So the cuter, the sexier, the more peanut butter, the better.
I want to see that freaky shit.
That freaky shit. But yeah, we will post it up. Dog of the Week. We sponsor you guys. And then if you have anything good and anything of substantial...
Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. So, Dog of the
Nike
Week.
that
Don't
shit.
forget, hashtag Barkology Podcast.
Boom.